Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hypnotic Rambles podcast episode number 2. My name is John Scanlon from sunny Wexford in Ireland, and it's living up to its name today.
Hello, good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. I'm Aniko, and I am from the UK. I would love to say it's sunny, but it isn't. It's
You're in the wrong
grey.
place.
So
And thank you to
firstly,
everybody for those wonderful comments that we got over the first episode. It is a rambling version, so that mightn't suit everybody, as one person pointed out to me. But we'll get everything covered, and we'll have a bit of fun while we're doing it. So today, Anniko's in charge.
as always, yes, and we would like to talk about responsibility.
And I am giving you full responsibility for this.
And it's not responsibility as in we are responsible for paying our bills or anything like that, but it's about how we feel. And the reason why I wanted this content or this subject to be talked about is because I think it's one of the foundations in when we want to change anything in our life, or when we want to become a different version of ourselves. Again, a very big and hard pill to swallow. But when I heard the sentence first that nobody can make you feel anything, I was fighting it. I literally fought it. I was like, no, that's not true. But the more I learned about it, the more I became aware of all the aspects, the more I realized that actually it is very, very true. What do you think, John?
I think that our behavior and our emotions are our responsibility. And you're right, nobody can make us feel the way we feel. It's our filters that define the way we look through the world and how we react. I think I'm trying to remember the exact expression, but it's, resilience is how you react to a certain circumstance that happens and how you deal with it. And when we take responsibility for how we feel, then we take charge of that situation.
Yeah.
And sometimes, as you said, they are really hard lessons to learn because there's internal conflict that goes on in terms of that behavior, and in terms of that feeling of this happened and it's not what I wanted. So how do I deal with that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's because when somebody says something or does something, we very quickly say that, okay, you made me feel this way because you just said that. And majority of the time, what we are trying to do is change the person, as in what to say to us or how to behave, so we can feel a different way. But their responsibility is their behavior, whatever they do or say. But how that makes us feel is ours. We can choose, obviously, but we can only choose once we start to become aware of it. I think more and more. There's a really great way of that I was taught this by Jack Canfield is that when he taught us that E plus R equals O, which is event plus response equals outcome. And if you really analyze it, the outcome is not in our control, is it? We cannot actually change what will happen. We can't control it. We cannot change what's happening at any given moment because the event, especially when it has other people involved, we can't control that either. The only thing that we can control in any given moment is our response.
Yeah.
And I think it's absolutely okay to feel anyhow we feel when something happens. But how do we carry that forward?
It's a really interesting question. A really interesting question. So here's my take on it.
Okay.
Every event that happens is absolutely neutral.
Yeah.
It's just an event. It's something that happens. It's a word that's said. It's something that happens. It's the significance that we give it through our filters that define the emotion or the significance that we give it. So Do you know where you are Christmas Day?
Yes.
Right. You know what you did and where you were? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know where you were on the 15th of January.
Nope. I
Right.
still
So,
don't. I still don't.
I asked you that last week.
Yes.
Ah, right, we'll delete this part. Anyway, well,
No, we won't. No, we won't.
it's the significance that we give it. So it's kind of like it's our filters that have determined how we look at that world. But if every event is subsequently neutral or initially neutral, and we have a particular outcome, it's how do we get back to that sense of levelness or neutralness that allows us to make those choices that will help us get the outcome we want.
Mm.
Because and that's often where the space that we work in, which is that people look at it through a certain set of filters that cause them to be anxious, to be, or whatever that case is, which stops the decision from being made and or affects the outcome. Because you're right, events plus
Response.
response equals the outcome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do we move from there?
Well, how do we move from there? Is to, so what I would recommend is to start working on past experiencing before doing anything as in the present. So because if we haven't learned this, if we haven't done this, we may not respond in a very appropriate way. So practicing on past situations, and then, okay, this is what happened. I really feel that that person is responsible. What if, and it's just an if, what if I took 5% responsibility of that 100%, just 5, no more than that. And then just sitting with it, like really brainstorming with ourselves, as in, okay, what could I have done differently, or how could I have responded differently? And that just starts to break it down. And then again, okay, because everybody has their part in every situation. It's not just one, right? And even if I strongly feel that I do not have any responsibility in the behavior, because the behavior is what caused my feelings, right? Then how could I put this on the feelings or my response, right? What if I had 5% responsibility of how I reacted or respond? Did I react or did I respond, right?
Mhm.
And what
And
if I just
that's a really good point. Did I react or did I respond?
exactly? And I think
Because
that's
response involves thoughtfulness, where
yeah,
you actually sit and think about it, whereas reaction is instant.
yeah, yeah,
Really interesting. And that becomes more an instinctual thing, which is an unconscious response, a bit like the fight or flight that kicks in and causes us to turn our head when we get a surprise. Um, so that's a really interesting point. So it's getting from reaction to response. I like the way you described that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And when we do practice this 5%, okay, I've done that. Ooh, I look at it already differently because I'm
Mhm.
already analyzing it differently. What if I took another 5%, right? And slowly we can get to so that there's like the 100% responsibility, but I have 100% responsibility of that 50 of what happened, right? So how can I get to that 100% responsibility from my part to do? But you have to practice. And I've done this. I've done these steps, and it is a very magical journey
Mm.
because straight away you start to recognize that actually I reacted, and reaction is not very. It's often, if not all the time, is inappropriate, isn't it? Because we do feel guilty after that. Why did I yell? Or why, we go into this
Yeah.
turmoil, mental turmoil. But then if I respond, then I can feel absolutely proud of myself. I can feel so much better. And then with practice, we can take it forward.
Okay. So there's two things in there then.
Okay.
Um, at least for me, and that's the responsibility I'm taking on my interpretation, which is
Well done.
the first one is, taking the learning from the event,
Yes.
something that happened. And you're right, that could also lead back to all of this stuff happened in the past. It may not. It may just be, I made a decision I shouldn't have. I won't do that again. If it's a really deep one, obviously, of course, and it becomes a programmed response,
Yes, yes,
then
absolutely.
obviously there's a bit more work involved. But the second part, and this is the part that I think people sometimes forget, is that if you responded in that way and you feel guilty about it afterwards, or you feel a bit sad about it afterwards, or you blame yourself a bit afterwards, you responded the best way that you could in that moment. So how do you then forgive yourself? Because if you don't, that cycle just continues.
And you're absolutely right. I would again just analyze it in a way that, okay, if I feel guilty afterwards, that means that yes, I have responded or reacted in that way because that's how I knew what to
Mhm.
do. And then to change that is to go to become aware of. So if I am putting my hands on my heart and I'm becoming honest with myself, nobody else is there, right? It's just me and me.
Mhm.
um, how should I have done, which again, should, we don't like that word. However, how should I have done it differently so the guilt doesn't come up? And again, that just takes us back to, so if I took 5%
Can
responsibility.
I change a few words in there?
Absolutely. Yeah, go for it.
How would I have liked to do it differently?
Exactly. That's even more prettier.
So taking some of the pressure off.
Yes.
I should have done this. Should
Yeah.
is,
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I mentioned it that the should is not, we don't like that, but
and how would I like to do it in the future?
yes, yes, exactly. And that's how you take the learning, and
Okay.
that's how you forgive yourself. Um, and then just follow that for the next time.
And of course, we know it's not necessarily that simple if it's a programmed response.
Yes. So I would recommend or suggest to do this exercise with not major events,
Right.
but small ones, like everyday events. Somebody pissed me off at work, or somebody did this to me, or maybe at the in the shop,
Hmm.
whatever, like little things, not major
Yeah.
ones,
Yeah.
to build that resilience, to learn how to respond rather than react.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, for the larger ones, there's a whole load of hypnosis processes that we go through, which we'll cover, I presume, in other episodes, because everything from EFT down to regression, down to emotional detoxes, down to, bilateral stimulation, whatever, there's a multitude of them. So, but ultimately it is because when you take responsibility for your own actions, a friend of mine has a podcast which I love. It's called "Happiness is an Inside Job." It
Oh,
allows that space. So shout out to Linda Emmett. Um, but it allows that space to be that internal happiness, to have that internal happiness. Um, and but it's also about taking responsibility for clearing the past, for clearing those unconscious blocks as they come up. We're not
yeah.
always aware of them, obviously, but as they come up, then it's our responsibility. Because I think sometimes we like to, as you said, blame others. It's someone else's fault. It's our parents' fault. Um, but at times we're not children anymore, so we have to start taking responsibility for how we react and feel.
Oh, there are a good few things that you've said there. I don't know if you knew this about me, but I used to be the queen of the blamers.
I didn't.
I was perfect. Well, I'm talking about years and years ago before I stepped onto this journey, and everything was other people's fault.
Mm,
You know, um, but blaming is not going to take you anywhere. It's again not taking responsibility for my own life anyway.
mm,
Um, with the happiness that you just said there, um, again, it's oftentimes what we do is you don't make me happy. I have changed that now over the years to what you're doing is not adding to my happiness. But again, it's not their responsibility to change the behavior unless the other person wants to make a compromise, make the relationship or whatever that is work. But nobody is responsible for my happiness whatsoever, not even 1% of it. So the 100% happiness that I have or I don't is my responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And once I do that, I can allow other people to add to it. But I can also allow them to take away from it. But it's, again, my responsibility. And that's again, I think, a very, very interesting
I remember first coming
concept.
across this concept, and I can't remember the book. And if we find it, we'll post it later on or something. But it was Man's Search for Meaning. It was Viktor Frankl, I think. And it was on World War II. And he was captured and he was in a concentration camp for however many years. But in there, he thought about, or he spoke about, how in his mind he could see all of the others, then how they were affected by everything that was going on. But in his mind, he was back in Vienna with his family the whole time.
Mm.
So he'd made the determination not to allow other people to affect how he felt. He was taking charge of how he felt and the emotions that he controlled. And I thought it was the first time I came across it. And I thought it's really interesting, but the other thing that you said in there, and I really loved it, and here we go rambling now again, but living up to the name.
That's just us.
Yeah. I if I heard you correctly, you kind of said, you made me feel, and I felt angry or sad or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And you've reframed the way you look at that.
Yeah.
And I think I've said this many times on many different things, but it's one of we touched on logical levels last week. So it's one of the things about language. When you're dealing with affirmations and all the training is to use it in the I am and use it in the positive. But I am angry, I am sad, I am hungry. We're making them all about ourselves. But when you think about other European languages, Irish, for instance, is one, and that's the only one I can speak a little bit of, so I can't actually speak about others. But it's like Tá Brón, their sadness is upon me. It's not who I am.
It's not who, yeah.
Yeah. So like there's also that thing of accepting that, we take responsibility for who we are or how we feel, but it's about identifying the difference between the two.
Yeah, it's not to identify with it that makes a massive difference. Yeah, absolutely. And what a strength that guy had in that camp.
Oh, yeah, that was absolutely.
It's such a strength that I had as you were talking. I mean, I heard that already many times, but it's like it gives me goosebumps. Now, the other thing that I picked up on what you said, and I think it's worth to mention here, is that also comes under the responsibility umbrella, is that the things that are happening to me in my life, therefore I am giving permission to myself to behave in a certain way. And you have to understand that because I am going through whatever I'm going through. And I think that's a very deep one. However, I think, again, something to think about.
Oh, you made that one now. That's quite deep. Go on.
It is very deep, but we often do that, don't we? I mean, and then we just like use that as a blanket that actually, but you know how I am. So now I want you to, you know what is happening. So I am angry because of whatever is happening. And again, because you said that it's our responsibility to then, whatever is happening to us, to work on it, right? It's a choice anyway. But so do I then allow myself to just be angry because whatever happened, and then projecting that anger onto other people and expecting them to understand it because of Or am I going to take responsibility of how I feel? Because whatever is happening from this second forward is really giving me the outcome, but it's my choice, isn't it?
It is
With
your
the
choice.
feelings that I have. Am I making sense? Or am I just
You are.
rambling?
You're both rambling, but no, you are. I mean, in essence, we're not psychic.
Exactly my point.
And sometimes we feel that other people are, so they should be able to pick up. And it's their responsibility to know what we're feeling.
Because this is not what I was saying just now. It's not conscious.
Yeah,
It's unconscious. But to become aware of this can help us to being seen and heard differently and to improve our relationship massively, I think. But
but
yes, we are not mind readers, are we? Nobody is.
no,
Nobody
so
is.
it changes the way you respond.
Mm,
You become clear in your response because that's changing the outcome
mm,
because you're giving direction for what it is that is affecting you in that way.
yeah.
If you don't give that direction, how does somebody know? They're shooting in the dark. They don't know which way to respond. You're
Yeah.
helping other people to respond in a clearer way. That is, and they may choose not to, of course, but
But that's not your responsibility
that's not your
anyway.
responsibility. Um, because we can only control our own responses and what is controllable for ourselves. I always remember there was Joe Smith was the Irish rugby coach, and I remember him using the expression that he would train the team that all they could do was control the controllables. They would just play to
Mm,
their strengths, and no matter who was coming and who they were playing, they would make a strategy about some of their stuff, but they would not change the way who they were. They would just focus on their strengths and control what they could control and let the rest go. They actually became, for the first time ever, number one in the world. I know we keep,
wow.
we're thereabouts most of the time these days, and that was kind of the first time that ever happened. But it was that strategy of literally just controlling the controllables, what we could control, how our strengths as a team were, and what we could do to combat maybe some of the stuff that the other team would do. And the stuff that we couldn't combat, we just let it and we played through our own strengths.
Mm,
And it's a good analogy to use for life, actually, because all we can do is control what we can control. All we can do is control our responses. But it's letting go of the outcome then.
oh, that's another whole massive
And there's, and I knew as soon as I said
something
it,
to talk about.
it's letting go of the outcome because the outcome has meaning.
Yeah. It's not the
And
outcome, it's the meaning that we put to it.
absolutely,
It's always,
always the meaning.
which was
It's
hard for me to understand at first when I was given this. And I'm like, what do you mean? What does it mean that it's the meaning? Everything has meaning, but no, no, no. Everything is neutral or nothing has meaning. It's I'm creating the meaning.
right.
Um,
Absolutely correct.
according to how I feel, obviously, how it makes me feel,
Yeah,
which is again,
which is determined by the filters you look at the world through and what's important.
yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, that whole thing of having a desired outcome, it and the emotion that we attach to it, the significance that we give it, is if we can tie it into that we control the controllables and do what we can to achieve that outcome. And almost, if you like, depending on, who you talk to, but, let the universe either deliver it or not, or let the unconscious mind, the reticular activating system, find the pathways to find it, or let God deliver it, or whatever version of reality you choose to use. Um, finding if we can just accept that once we can control the controllables, do what we can to achieve a
Mm,
certain outcome, then that outcome is beyond our control. And we just have to accept that. If it comes, it comes. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to mention here that the reason why we want a desired outcome is because we believe that it's going to make us in a way, make
Yes.
us feel in a way. More often than not, it's like, oh, I'm going to feel happy, right? Or going to feel joy or whatever if I'm going to have that outcome. And then straight away, the intention for that is wrong, because nothing and nobody can make us happy. Because once we are, we learn how to make ourselves happy, meaning that we know ourselves, and that's what we do, is the time when it becomes easier to let go of that desired outcome.
It does. It
I
does.
think.
Yeah, it does. Because if we know what our triggers are, now we're going for an outcome because it's important to us and we feel that there'll be something in it. And we feel something in it that will make us happy. Because you know what they say, you remember people by not what they say, but how they make you feel. Ultimately, as human beings,
Always.
that's what we do. We remember by experiences,
Mm.
by emotions, which is what keeps us away from pain and moves us towards pleasure. But it's also in there about recognizing that we can only control what we control. And the key thing, I suppose, the way that I always tend to look at the world is that if we can control what we can control and we do what we can control, then there is no regrets with the outcome. We may not like the outcome, we may not get what we want, but we know we've turned over every stone and gone down every pathway to achieve it. And maybe it just wasn't for us in the first place. Maybe.
Absolutely. So what would you say to the audience now? As in, what would be your one or maybe two suggestions, recommendation when it comes to responsibility, as in how to look at it and how to practice it, so that they can feel that they are more responding rather than reacting?
Yeah, I would say two things. The
Okay.
first thing is that it was a hard lesson learned, but my reaction is my responsibility. And if something comes up, then if I'm not responding in the way that I would like to respond, then it's up to me to look at that to figure out what that is. The second thing is, and I'm a huge fan of the Institute of Heart Math in the US, which is heart-brain coherence. That the process of appreciation allows the heart and brain to connect, and the heart connects with the brain 4 times more than the other way around. So when we focus on appreciation, we take responsibility for how we feel. And there's always something to appreciate, whether it's the chair we're sitting on and providing the comfort that I'm sitting on, right, whether it's the cup of tea I have in my hand, that's the warmth. There's always something, the sunshine that's shining outside, or well, it's starting to disappear now, but there's still blue sky, so that's positive. They're probably the two things, because appreciation is a really powerful way of determining how we feel. And even if it's that there's a learning in an event and we've learned it, so it won't reoccur.
Beautiful, beautiful.
What
And
about you?
yes, I would have mentioned that the same thing as what you did, as in, if I reacted in a way that I didn't like it, to go inward, to go and check, okay, so why did that happen? And to just become honest with ourselves as to how we feel or how that thing made me feel. And that's why I reacted in a way. And then we can take it from there. Absolutely take it from there. Because in my experience, and that's just my experience and my opinion, nobody has to agree with me. But the second I become honest with myself, as in, and say it out loud, yeah, that thing made me feel this way, then I can start to check that. So why did it make me feel? And then from there, it's already starting to weaken that feeling, and it makes it easier to take that 5% responsibility and another 5 and another 5. And then eventually come to the 100% responsibility of my part in any situation. So yeah.
Yeah, and of course, as therapists, that's what we're dealing with all the time anyway, for we're helping people.
Exactly, that's the other
And
thing.
ourselves, because we're human too.
And I think it's okay to mention here that, you know, if you choose to ask for help, it is really beneficial, because you can then strengthen your resilience even more, even faster, because within the field that we work in, you know, the hypnotherapy or coaching, whatever you want to go for, it helps you to see things differently faster,
Yes.
because there is somebody next to you that is not emotionally involved, so they can help you to look at things differently, and also to help you to work on those responses or reactions, so that the next time it's appropriate for you, so you can feel proud of yourself and good about it, rather than feel guilty for reacting in a way that you didn't
better
want to.
outcome for yourself as well.
Exactly.
And feel good about it in the process.
Mm.
So there you go.
There you go.
We've reached a natural end to this ramble.
Yes, absolutely. And I think we've covered everything that we wanted. And if not, we'll add it to the next one.
Absolutely.
That's absolutely fine.
Well, it's been a pleasure.
Yes, it was a very good conversation. I really enjoyed it, and I hope the audience does too. And we are again would very much like to receive any kind of feedback, any comments, and really would love to have questions so that we can answer you.
And you've just given us content for the next one. Information is only feedback.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's a beautiful one. Yeah,
The
absolutely.
more you want, the more we'll cover. So tell us what we do, and we'll happily go down. We'll ramble down that road and see where it goes.
Yeah, absolutely, like always.
Absolutely.
So with that, I think we can bring this to a close and
absolutely
say goodbye to everyone.
So it's a goodbye from me.
And from me, and have a magical day wherever you are.
And enjoy the responsibility.
Enjoy. Bye.
Bye.